So I'd like to introduce our next panel for the M&A Masterclass that I was talking about, maximizing value in today's market. We're fortunate enough to have 3 M&A experts sharing their wisdom with us today. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Jacobie Olin, president of C2G Advisors and STR Enterprise founders and CEOs, Will Creedon of Alloggio, and Sean Breuner of Avantstay. Let's give them a hand.
How we doing, everybody?
Very good.
We will try not to make this too boring. I know everyone's ready for lunch, but we'll try to have some fun here. Appreciate everyone coming. I am extremely excited to be able to be interviewing both of you. We have Sean Breuner with me, the CEO and founder of Avantstay, and then Will Creedon, the founder of Alloggio. And they run 2 of the foremost brands across the world. So very excited to dig in. We'll start out going over some high-level real-world transactions that have happened recently. And then we'll go into how they both underwrite and look at companies, maybe like yourself. And then we'll talk about some things that sellers can do today to maybe improve their business moving forward. And then if we have some time, we'll try to finish off with some questions. Happy to answer anything from the audience. But just to start off, Sean and Will, I guess, Sean, let's start with you first. Can you just give the audience like a little lay of the land of where Avantstay is at today and maybe how many acquisitions you guys have done?
Yeah, of course. So I think where we're at today, we have about 2,500 homes across 160 cities and 45 markets. And that for us is around $7-ish billion in AUM. So we kind of operate in the luxury segment. Typically $2 million plus is where we focus in terms of the home type. We find that the margins are better there and there's a better way to differentiate the experience from traditional commodified spaces. So I think that that's a big part of the future of the industry is how do you amenitize these homes and bring that hotel experience that everybody loves into the home. We call it hotel in a home. And we built a vertically integrated software that over the last 8-9 years that has really built in efficiencies across the full spectrum of revenue and then obviously efficiencies on the expense side. So today we are back in kind of growth mode. We talked to Jacobie a lot. And we've done about 21, 22 different acquisitions over the last 5 or 6 years. So we didn't start getting into the acquisition space, I think, until I want to say 21, and we did a number in 21, and then we kind of paused in 22, 23, and then we've been getting more active of late. A lot of those are very small, so some of them are tuck-in acquisitions, some are earn-outs, partnerships. So again, I think some of the stuff we'll talk about today is what are the different structures. Not all of it is, here's your money, see you later, and not all of it's 100% cash up front. So there is a lot of complexity, I think, to the business. There's also a lot of interesting ways to partner with local operators where you can scale behind a national brand and provide efficiencies and unlock their ability to go out there and scale and grow.
So you're saying as a seller, you can't sell your business and then retire down to Cabo the day after close and start sipping on Mai Tais?
If you find somebody that allows you to do it, take the money and run, is what I would say, but not a good solution for the buyer because this business obviously embedded relationships that are critically important to the success of these companies. Takes time to build those relationships. So when you integrate a new portfolio, you have to build those relationships with what has been sometimes 5 to 10 years long with the owner of that business. That's not easy to do. So if it's a buy and fly scenario, usually those are not successful acquisitions. If it's a buy, unlock capabilities for that person maybe to do what they love, which is typically business development. It's typically being out there doing sales and acquisitions and scaling the business while alleviating them of the operational stresses of the day-to-day through technology, platform, team, infrastructure. That seems to be kind of the future of the business, and that's usually a 2 to 3 year type earn-out situation.
That's great. Will, how about your business? Where are you guys at today? If you like talk through some acquisitions.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Hello from Australia. And I know there's a few in the audience that aren't from Australia, so thank you for joining us all the way down. Alloggio, Karen, my wife, and I founded it in December 2015. Today, 15 hotels, 3,500 units along the east coast of Australia and the North and South Island of New Zealand. During our journey, we rolled every single dollar we could. We had a very, very helpful and bank manager that believed in us, and we rolled every single debt we could. Why? So that we could keep our shareholding. That changed in 2020, where we saw opportunity, and that led us on the road to IPOing, where we listed on the Australian Stock Exchange November 21. That led us to looking across the world to understand where money was flowing, and we decided to privatize less than 2 years later. We're still private today. We've done about 45, 46 acquisitions. We typically are very rigid in how we look at geographies. We've got 9 regions that we will continue to build out, be it through separate business units and or tuck-ins, as Sean has said, over the next circa 85 to 95 weeks. Then we'll go out and we'll expand that radius to add probably 5 more jurisdictions. Why are we doing that? We're doing that so that we can actually, number one, deliver on our promise. Logistically, we need to keep our owners real happy. Without the inventory, I don't care, you can't sell anything. So it's a really important part. To get there, and this is where it's very interesting with acquisitions. You know, God bless us, we've been around before Christ as an industry, but we have never, ever scaled as an industry. So the different commercial models that exist are extraordinary. God bless humans. The entrepreneurial spirit of a human building and how they make money is extraordinary in our industry. Above and below the rent line, meaning what an owner sees and what an owner doesn't see. It's quite interesting. Why am I spending time on it? Because if you are to scale, you need a robust structure to allow that to happen, to integrate into your business, and also integrate the IP and the people, as well as the technology that drives that into your business. Otherwise, you won't scale and you'll fall apart, both humanly, structurally, and from capital. So it's a very interesting thing. So where are we now? Thankfully, probably over the next, give or take, 400 weeks, we should be somewhere between 12 and 14,000 properties, and we should triple our hotel business. So are we on an acquisition front? Yes, but careful. You made the right point. With respect, 2020 to 2022 and a half was a seller's time. Now it's a buyer's time, and it's a buyer's time for the next 200 weeks. Sorry to say it, those that want to sell, you need to be thinking about that. You need to psychologically get in the right place. I'll pause.
Oh, well said. Well said, and I think that flows well into this next topic. And I wanted to take a quick step back and just macro-wise look at how the industry has evolved since COVID, since 2020 to today. And we have some quick slides we can run through, but I'm speaking specifically for North America and Central America, and then would love to get Will's feedback and then also Sean's after this. I think it's super impressive internationally. But really, as Will alluded to, like 2020 to really first half of 2022 were gangbusters. Like so much capital coming to the market, the COVID froth was happening. I mean, we don't have to go into everything. Demand was up. It was insane, and it was a seller's market, as you mentioned, and we then hit the top of the mountain, and really from second half of 2022, and every market was slightly different based on their peak seasonality until really until today, to be honest. The market has started a reversion, and it's a reversion back to either normalcy or the mean or whatever you want to call that. And every market has been slightly different from that. But from an M&A perspective, 2023 and 2024 were much lighter in terms of M&A. And part of that was from a disconnect between what the seller thought their business was worth and what the buyer was willing to pay, because a lot of sellers had received offers in 20 and 21, and they were inflated offers, and they just weren't the actual price of what the business was worth. However, starting in 2025, in North and Central America, there has been just some gangbusters acquisitions on the top end that I'd like to walk through really quickly, and I think it's pretty interesting. I've never used this, so hopefully this works. Okay, so this quickly just goes through some multiples and purchase price. I think the formatting is a little off on this, but essentially what it says is at the bottom of this slide is that if you guys think you're going to get a 8, 9, 10 multiple of EBITDA and you manage 50 properties or so because you saw that some big company got that, like that's just not how the markets work. However, the larger you get, the more professional you get, the more that you are measuring and benchmarking your company as you grow, the more you will have leverage in negotiations and be able to get better structures as well. But let's hop into just like what happened in 2025 so far in the last 9 months. So first off, the largest public company in our industry was taken private by Costco. Any one of these, if this happened in 1 year, would be a major movement for that year. However, we had 4 or 5 of these happen in this year. So then we had Away Day, which is the largest private equity-backed company that was acquired by Ares Capital. We had Nocturne, which is one of the larger luxury-focused private equity-backed companies. They were acquired by Calera. It was announced that V-Trips was going to be seeking a recap this year and finding a new partner. And then lastly, a new group entered the industry called Garnet Station Partners with their brand called Stayterra in this industry. And all that to be said is that every one of those acquisitions, the buyers of those companies, they need to 3 to 5x their investment over the next 3 to 5 years. So we expect more acquisitions to happen on the higher end with more professional companies. And then with all those deals as well, there were 20 bridesmaids at each one of those deals that was not the winner of it, and they are now all looking for their first platform acquisition as well. So I think and this is more in North and Central America, so I think from an M&A perspective for the next 3 to 5 years, I think we have a pretty positive or healthy runway. However, these buyers are going to be cash flow focused, and they're going to be much more in the weeds on your professionalism, how you're running your business, growth, brand, and financials, and I'll let them get into that a little bit more. But Will, I'd love to hear from you, like how you've seen the last couple of years and today in like Southeast Asia and Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, thank you. Like I suppose there's a few things here to unpack. One is appreciate the different type of structures of business models in North and South America. You're more light touch than Europe, and the heaviest touch is actually where I'm from in the world. And what I mean by that is more actual physical labor needed, which means each EBITDA, each expenses, right? So why I'm starting with that is, let's take a journey down. Like, there's 2 things that are happening in a macro level in the world at the moment. One, why are the deals happening in 2025? The deals are happening in 2025 because VC and private equity and other types of money have usually a 3 to 5 year window. And that 3 to 5 year window is actually starting right now on sale, right? So 25, 26, 27, those that got in 2021 are going to exit somewhere along in a liquidity event in that period. So it's a really interesting time. And I'm talking about people that are doing 15 to 50, 70 million EBITDA. I'm not talking below that, I'm talking that level. And that they're going to be swallowed up or be part of another, or a grouping of another, be it institutional or other larger private equity. Very few are going to hit the IPO world. We are not mature enough yet as a sector, and I'm sorry to say it, to actually hit that world and own it. We will also own only about 0.7, 0.8% of any of the stock exchanges that are major across the world. So we're too small in relation to share flow, which means we will be very poor in liquidity movement of shares and prices. I'm going to pause, go to Europe. Europe has had a poor season. Year and a quarter of poor seasons. ADR is low, length of stays are low. Those that have bought and spent a lot of money at 6, 7, 8Xs are trying to get the cash flow. And they're going to be out of the market for about another, give or take, 70 weeks or so, 80 weeks, so they can rebuild their balance sheets. It's a really interesting time. And beside that, some of the major debt providers and valuers are reassessing where multiples need to be. And that is being driven out of Europe a little bit. Then if you move down to the Middle East and down to Asia and Africa, like they are really interesting areas. Why? Because there's consolidation, there's an opportunity and a half there. There is some cultural, there's some legal, there's some money, sovereignty issues that structured players need to overcome, but my God, it's really interesting. Then you head down to where I am in Australia and New Zealand. Like our multiples, to be frank with you, there's only a few players that are in our world that are, there's only 2 players actually over 1,500 properties in Australia, and there's a third that joins us in New Zealand. And when you think of it, we live in a small world. And our small world is that our multiples, to be frank with you, and EBITDA, is somewhere between 2.7 and 3.4. And that is, you need to be making money, and you need to be making money that it doesn't cost us to integrate you. And that is a really interesting place where our industry is at, down in Asia, down in New Zealand, and down in Australia. So there's a run road for us for another, give or take, 500 weeks before I see serious players of serious opportunity of North America, Europe, and the Middle East joining us. We've had a recent deal with IO and Made Comfy on a trajectory of 50 million over a period of a number of years. That's an extraordinary amount and they're building because of other reasons and the structuring of what that company is doing into the future. But that is a rare size deal in Australia.
Sure.
And will be for a while to come.
So let's go. So that was macro. Let's get a little bit more micro into your actual businesses and how you guys review, diligence, or underwrite specific deals. So Sean, as Avantstay is looking to, as you mentioned, I guess get more acquisitive in the next 12 to 24 months. What are some qualities of a seller that attract Avantstay to them?
That they're in the U.S. Because that sounded very complex. But I do think that the U.S. market is closer than people give it credit for. So,
would you do anything in like Central America or Mexico?
You know, when you think about going international, you have to think about currency conversions. You have to think about cultures, languages. You got to shift all your documentation. There's certain regulations in each one of those areas. So this is massively complex that we've looked into. Very interesting, but until we're coded across Aspen, Savannah, Hawaii, it makes less sense for us to go international. 9 out of the top 25 markets in the U.S. are in Hawaii, for example. And learning that culture in and of itself is challenging before you even get into new countries, new languages, new regulations, and obviously currency and hedging and all that. We're not going to get too much into that, but very, very complex, especially even with the Australian dollar. The Australian dollar is trading at 70 cents, I think, on the dollar right now. And so being able to calibrate that and understand the macro environment, which I know this was a micro question, but understand the macro environment is challenging. So what is less challenging is getting into markets like Aspen and Breckenridge and all of this. So when we look at sellers, U.S. based, but we want them to be in luxury drive-to destinations in the highest ADR markets in the country. So the reason we like highest ADR markets in the country, because that's where you can differentiate your offering. That's where you can provide amenities. That's where you can provide services and concierge. So you can start to augment the actual offering with differentiated services and local partners and some national partners that then create a willingness to pay that drives higher. So what you want to avoid is running a race to the bottom on pricing. And we talk about willingness to pay all the time. You can take one house, which is an Avantstay house, and compare it to another house, could be the same exact model match house. If you're providing concierge and amenities and services, obviously that increases the value of that house or the value of the revenue streams. A good example might be the beach in what is it, Oahu or Maui? I think it's Maui. You have the Four Seasons that's trading at $1,500 a night. Next door is the Grand Wailea at $600-700 a night. It's the same beach. The hotel rooms are very similar. The difference is the service offering, the food, the amenities. So we're big believers that building technology infrastructure partnerships around that experience is critically important, and that's where we look for from sellers that have that same vision. We also look for sellers that want to be there for years to come. So we do not want the buy and fly seller. We want somebody to say, hey, look, I've hit 75, 100 properties, and we're doing really well. We're 4.8 plus rated across all these different OTAs, but we think we can go get another 100 properties. I just can't do it while I'm operating on a day-to-day basis. So we come in and we can unlock the time for that person to go out and run biz dev. And most people get in this industry because they love people. Let's be honest, hospitality is a people business. You have to love people. It's a very difficult business. If you don't love people, you're gonna have a very difficult time operating. And so once you get to that point of 75 or 100, a lot of times off-the-shelf technology or the combination of different point solutions becomes a very challenging integration and harder to scale. So you start to look at different solutions, and one of the solutions is partnering with us through some type of earn-out structure where we'll buy the company, give cash up front, we'll give you an earn-out, and then there'll be a lot of what we call kickers. So bonus structures, hitting a certain amount of unit count, hitting certain market level profit. Obviously, we want to pay them to be on salary and be in the business, but you're transitioning more to a GM business development role as opposed to a true, operator, BD, everything, all of the above.
That's great. Yeah, I think we did
in a perfect world.
Yeah. How do you guys look at like tuck-ins versus like a new market?
Yeah.
And kind of what's the pros and cons there?
So I think it was super interesting when you said 2.7 to 3.4. I'm like, whoa, if I could nail down, multiple within that range, it would make my life a lot easier. When I look back at 2022, the shift was less about deployment cycles, was more about interest rates. Interest rates started ripping. 2022 creates uncertainty. How do you underwrite deals when in 2022, early rates are at 0, and then over the next 2.5 years, they go to 5, 5.25. Now what you're seeing is private equity and venture capital pour money into the space because there is at least some certainty around rates. Hard to say there's certainty right now, but there's more certainty than there was back then. I think the way we look at the market is tuck-ins. You can find tuck-ins with people that are supercharged, high energy, great local connections that want to be a part of the bigger vision, the bigger opportunity, and those you're buying at 1 to 2 times EBITDA, sometimes even less.
Yeah.
And then there's earn-out structures. Then you get into local operators, which those might be 2 to 5 times EBITDA. Then you get into regional operators, those might be 4 to 7 times. It's not until when you look at the Waydays of the world that sold at the high teens, it's not until you get into national operations with sophisticated, I would say sophisticated infrastructure, starting with accounting. I'd say one piece of advice is get your accounting dialed early because that's just critically important to being able to sell your business. But you can get into the high teens as you scale. So that's why you're seeing private equity and venture money pour back in the space. You're also seeing a clearing of the public comps, right? So Vacasa going private was a great thing for the industry because we no longer have to talk about a company trading at pennies on the dollar on the open market. And I think there might be more of that coming. So once you clear those comps that maybe went public a little too early, burning too much cash, weren't profitable, now you start to settle into what is a more mature industry where you can see these 2 to 3 times EBITDA businesses scale to local, regional, national, and then international. And that's where you start to garner these higher multiples in the high teens. And then eventually what you want to start doing is valuing technology. Our thesis has always been tech matters. And so why does it matter? Well, you have to prove it. It matters because we do more revenue, because we have lower churn, because we can have more growth. It matters because we have lower expenses. So I think technology and that proof point is starting to come out that it really does matter because running a horizontal operation is very different than a vertical operation. You could put somebody, that's why you go to these hotels, you see them still running their tech on DOS. It's old school. You know, and in order to run, and Guesty has an incredible platform, by the way, so kudos to everybody using Guesty, and I mean that because they have built an incredible platform, and that didn't exist 7, 8 years ago. So the maturity of the industry is coming. The range of EBITDAs and valuations are so massive because it depends how long does that person want to stay on, you know, where are they operating, what are the ADRs, what are the margins. If you're operating at a 10 to 15% EBITDA margin to GBV, we don't like that because you're almost too good. There's less opportunity for us to squeeze out higher margins. If you're operating at 5% EBITDA margin to GBV, that's interesting because then we can improve your margins through our infrastructure.
I might just jump in here.
Yeah.
I just want to talk to the 10 property to the 200 property person. You asked the right question. What are we looking for? When we go into a place, we want to know that you are talking to your local councillors, that you're talking to the people that set the regulation in that community. Why? Because we don't want surprises. The biggest enemy that's coming to us over the next 500 to 1,000 weeks is there across the world is there's going to be various levels of regulation and levies and cost. So we need to think about that. The only way to overcome that is, a lovely lady earlier on talked about it, we're a human-to-human business. That is human to the politicians and to the regulators. We need to know what that field looks like. That's one. Two, with respect to you, if we go and look at your business, we need to know, and I'm sorry what I'm going to say, is that if you die, what is the structure underneath you? What is the human structure that's underneath you? If you get sick, who's going to replace you? And will they be there the day after tomorrow? Because what we are buying is your loyalty and trust and goodwill that you and your team have built with your owners. And we need to know it's going to be there for weeks and years ahead. That's two. Three, with respect, don't hide what's under the hood. Be upfront, be honest. It's okay. Chances are we've seen it all. We've seen all the lies. We've seen all the things that people have told us. And to be honest, we are going to give you money with the principle that you are selling what you are selling and it's right. So let it be right. The only way to let it be right is be honest. To be honest. Really important. Don't hide it. The third thing is, Sean is dead right. We want you to be here for years. We don't want you to lead it though. We want you to hand over the baton to not to me, but to somebody else beside me, so they can build on the foundations that you have created. But more importantly, you can re-energize yourself. Go on a bloody holiday. It's hard work, this industry. Go off. So when you come back, you're energized. And where are most founders, where they love to spend time? It's not in trust accounting, I can tell you. It's about speaking with future owners. So go off and find a place around that, because that's where we want you. We want you to be an ambassador of your own business that happens to be we are presently guardian as the guardian.
But
that's
we do
what
love good trust accounting.
Oh man, there's hey, none of us want to go to jail, and you know,
good trust accounting
with respect,
is probably the first
it's
thing you look
non-negotiable.
for.
You know, yeah.
I do agree though that you're part of the M&A transactions. You're buying local authority.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, the fact that you're embedded into the local community, critically important.
I'm conscious we got a minute and a half.
Well,
so.
with us having just a minute and a half, I feel like we could sit up here and talk all day. I've got like 100 more questions. For the audience, real quick, if you don't know what EBITDA is, it's essentially an acronym for your profits. So that's what that is. I know as you're growing, a lot of times you may not actually be profitable for some time. So there are ways that buyers can look at revenue and kind of reverse engineer how it would work in their system. But I think just to leave everyone off with a couple of things, if y'all don't mind, like maybe 2 or 3 things that sellers can do today that may help them in the next 2 to 3 years to be in the most positive light for if Avantstay or if Alloggio comes knocking on the door. And I think Will, you hit on one of them is like key man risk. Is early on, like you have to do everything. You have to be a generalist. But as you grow, like you have to start delegating and giving some of those relationships with homeowners or with guests to other people. But Sean or Will, either one of y'all want to take that first?
I can just start. I mean, I think in a perfect world, you want to be able to buy a company and your infrastructure and your brand and your platform is powerful enough to excite the homeowners to say, hey, we're going to deliver more revenue. We're not in a perfect world, but that is kind of where we're headed, and that's obviously where we want to get to, is we want to be able to buy you and send you off and you know, you're on a beach in Hawaii having a great time. I think what we're looking for today is somebody who probably hasn't got to the point where they're fully burnt and they're ready to just leave the industry. Somebody who really does have, you know, a ton of energy left to build for another few years. The other thing that I would say is that, so that's number one. The other thing that I would say is number two is trajectory of increase in unit count is critically important for us. And so what's less important are the margins. Like if you're operating at the most elite margin profile for your company, that's not that interesting to us. What is interesting is probably a lower margin profile, but seeing the unit count increase. That means you have low churn. That means you have, you have a good product. And so we can always optimize the margins. So we don't need to worry about that. And Jacobie's world class at optimizing those on a spreadsheet. So he'll get you the valuation that you need for the performer for the acquisition. But I think very important to see that unit count increasing, and super important to have some gas left in the tank.
Will, last word?
Yeah, Sean's pretty much covered it. Get your finances in order to make it squeaky clean, and it'll take you a year to run through that, to be honest with you. The other thing, guys, in your business, if you look at it like a bus and there's seats on a bus, every member of your team has a seat on the bus. You need to look in the mirror and see if that team member is in the right seat in the bus. Or, unfortunately, sometimes you have to say goodbye to some of your team members because they're actually holding you back. So what is really good is early to look in the mirror, decide about your team. And and please take this, we all love people and we're very passionate about our industry and we're there for our people. But sometimes you have to be there to say goodbye, as well as I'm going to move you here. And it's really important, guys, because what we'll do, it will save you anguish, huge trauma when we come along, is because we're going to have to make those decisions for you. And to be honest, as leaders, you have to say the things that others don't. You have to be honest. If you do that, I can tell you from my side, our retention in our deal structuring, our installment structuring, shrinks because there's less to do. It costs less for us, and I want to pay you more for that. And that takes genuinely about 50 to 75 weeks. If you do that and you're diligent about it, and you remove all of the white noise, that's the company we want to buy, or tuck in, or start a new district with. It's very simple.
Sean, Will, thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Everybody,
God bless.
Appreciate it. Let's eat some lunch.
God bless you.